Hi, I'm Mike Bush.
I'm Paul New.
And I'm Colleen Sterling. Welcome to Ask the A&Ps from AOPA.
You have a tough maintenance question? Well, you come to the wrong place. No, that's not. No, this is the right place to bring your tough maintenance questions because we will attempt to answer them. And hopefully, if we can't answer them, at least we'll have fun trying. So if you have tough maintenance questions, please email it to podcasts@aopa.org for a chance to get on the show.
And please click and subscribe so you never miss being at the party.
Oh, yeah. And if you'd like to be on our email list for our monthly newsletter and other interesting stuff, easiest way to do that is to text the word SAVVY, SAVVY, to 33777. And your phone will ask you for your name and email address, and it will be added to our email list. So just text SAVVY, SAVVY, to 33777 to put yourself on our email list.
So I have a story this month about the propeller, the spinny thing on the front of my Cardinal. It started throwing grease, which I noticed on my windshield, and I wiped it off dutifully. And then it started throwing more grease, so it was on my tail, all the way back on the vertical.
Wow, this is a Hartsville.
No, it's a Macaulay constant speed prop throwing grease. Obviously, not
which means you can't just pump more grease into it.
Can't pump more grease in, so the grease is going bye-bye. And, I tried to ignore it for a while because the prop had only 200 hours since the last reseal. And I thought, well, that's not right. That grease can't be there. So I kept wiping it off. But I actually went for a flight where it was like a 45-minute flight, and I had to bring a rag and a ladder to get up there and clean the windscreen because it was getting so bad. So I thought, okay, the prop's got to come off. So I called the shop that I always have used. Me and my husband, we've always used this shop. It's a reputable shop in California, and spoke to the DOM there. And the first question he said was, how old is the prop? When was it last overhauled? And I said, I bought it new from you guys 11 years ago. And he said, well, I'm sorry, you're out of luck. We can't reseal it. We have to overhaul it. Because that's just our, repair station rules. And I said, but, I'm Part 91. What's the deal? And he said, I'm sorry, that's just the rules. And I felt like saying, well, it was only 200 hours since the last time you resealed it. Shouldn't it last longer than that?
Yeah.
But I decided that wasn't going anywhere. So I said, well, I'll call you back. And before I hung up, he told me, and an overhaul on your prop would be $6,700.
Ouch.
Which I wasn't planning on spending, and I didn't think was necessary.
Two-bladed.
It's two blades. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
And and I don't fly it that much. It hasn't, unfortunately. So I was disappointed with this. So I called up my friend Mike Bush and cried on his shoulder. And he said, well, you can try another prop shop that's in California closer. And I'd be happy to give them a pitch. They were Golden State Propeller at San Luis Obispo. And they're a smaller mom and pop shop. And I was like, well, okay, I'm not really comfortable going to a place I've never been to before, but I really have no choice. So let's see. So I called them up and they're like, oh, sure, we'll reseal it. No problem. So the problem was getting the prop to them because unlike the other shop, they don't come and pick it up. And a prop's a big thing. You can't just stick it in a box and mail it UPS. I can, but it's a big box. So I thought about that for a long time and eventually convinced a friend to fly a Cardinal up, and we delivered the prop, and we got to have lunch with Mike, which was kind of nice because Mike's close by. They resealed the prop while I was in New Zealand, and then I had to figure out a way to get it back. And it turns out they put it on a truck and drove it fairly close, and then my husband drove up and picked it up. So we were able to get the prop back. And last weekend, it went on pretty smoothly. The way you mount a Macaulay prop on a Lycoming is it's got nuts integral to the hub There's 6 big nuts that take, I think it's a 3/4 inch wrench.
Yep.
And
with a roll pin through the nut, holding it to the stud.
well,
Does yours
there's
not have that?
no, mine has
Okay.
a hollow pin through the nut that you have to
Yes.
safety. Is that what you
Yeah,
meant?
that's what I'm
You have to
talking about.
safety
Yeah.
wire.
Yeah, it's a roll
Okay.
pin.
Yeah, it's a roll pin. So the nuts are 2 pairs of nuts. There's 3 sets of 2 nuts that get safety wired to each other so they don't move. And traditionally use 41 thousandth wire for this. Although I've spoken to other prop shops and they're like, if the wire is going to break, it's going to break. And 41 thousandths is not going to break slower than 32 thousandths. So, but it's always had 41. And since I'm an A&P, I don't want another A&P saying, who wired your prop? So I did it with 41 thousandths. And
Good for you.
I have to say, what a bear that stuff is. It does not bend. It does not untwist or twist very easily. My hands hurt and the access is terrible. And torquing those nuts is, with a crow's foot and a torque wrench and all kinds of crazy extenders and angles, you can only get to a couple of the nuts. So I torqued the 2 that I could get to, and then I used about the same pressure for the ones I couldn't get to. Which goes that's TLAR, isn't it?
She's admitting this.
On the air. Do you want me to come out and bring my torque wrenches and
Do you
adapters?
have a special way to
No,
get
because you'd have to unsafety wire it all if you did that.
Oh,
I'm
we can re-safety it in an hour. That's no big deal.
No,
I would love for you to come out, Paul. There's a
Yeah.
lot of work I'd have you do on my plane, but
I would like to ask a profound question.
uh-oh.
Why when you mount a prop on a Continental, there's no safety wiring? You just torque the nuts up. And
Well, they
when you
have
mount
these lock nuts.
yeah, they
and
use right.
Yeah.
So
It's-
why all the safety wiring on Lycomings? If
because of the way they don't have the ability to have a safety, because the nut, if you will, is built into the flange of the crankshaft.
So they can't put a
So
lock nut on
There's
it.
no locking device because you
A
can
lock
only use a locking device
washer.
so many times, and then
Yeah.
it's toast.
Yeah.
So
The nuts
they
are
do the
integral
safety.
to the hub. Yeah.
That is integral, yeah. And the 41 thousandths safety wire, by the way, is specifically called for. So
Is it
it's
really?
a good thing you put it on there. Now, if you upgrade or change is a better word, not always an upgrade, to a 3-bladed propeller, if you check the specs, often they allow for 32. Don't ask me why there's a difference. But so for those that are listening, there is a specific size safety wire. And when you call the propeller shop and say, hey, can I use 32? And they say, oh yeah, that'll be fine. That ain't so. It is a specific size that's called for.
Well, I do have to say, at Reno, we have seen several overspeeds of propellers where people move the governor too fast and the oil is too slow to respond. And they come back and they report, I think I had an overspeed, I heard it, or a surge. And you can grab the propeller and rock it and you can feel that the blades are loose. On the crank, the hub is loose, and then we've taken it off, and all the safety wire, whether it's 41 or whatever, is broken.
It's broken.
Yeah.
So those nuts moved. So the safety wire really doesn't stop it when there's an event, but maybe it kept it on. I don't know. It's just the safety wire seems kind of extra.
Well, the safety wire didn't keep them tight. It just supposedly it's to keep them in place.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Overspeeds, there's nothing you can do. We had a customer that had an overspeed on a Bonanza a couple of decades ago when we still worked on brand B airplanes. Mm-hmm. And when he did, several of the studs broke, and we found a pair that these were, for whatever reason, were safety. It's Continental engine. So whoever installed the propeller, the studs on the propeller have holes in the end of them. And a lot of mechanics are just certain that means you have to put safety wire in it, which it doesn't. But anyway, so they laced safety wire around through them. And a couple of the studs were just kind of hanging there in the safety wire because they had broken off.
Yeah.
It was pretty weird to see.
Well, I mean, I can talk about prop failures. My husband's prop came off at Reno when his
Yeah.
turbocharged 550 started running very, very rough. I mean, he was pulling like 50 inches. I mean, a lot more than normal.
Yeah.
And the nuts did not back off. What happened is several studs pulled out of the hub.
The hub. Yeah.
Yeah, and two sheared off. So we're talking big forces. And actually, it's not, I've learned it, I think it's the interference fit between the hub and the flange that really provides the, the torque or the sticking. It's not the studs are there to hold it in place, but it's also the two flat surfaces together that's doing a lot. And you could actually see that it had, what is it called? Micro welded, or the two pieces had moved.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You can see transfer of metal between them before it finally ripped off. There's a lot of force there.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the safety wire is really doing, frankly, but.
Well, something else that you said.
It's keeping the nuts in place after the stud shear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have the evidence.
Yes.
You commented about the repair station saying it's a repair station rule.
Yeah.
About this. So when you have a 145 repair station, which I'm getting ready to be a 145 repair station again. So I have spent way too much time in reading 145. I've written the manual. It's all been approved, all that stuff. But there's nothing in part 145 that says anything about changing the way you perform maintenance on an airplane. All right. Our first question is from Scott, who has a super cool engine. Now, are we talking temperature, or it's just really neat? I mean, like painted in fire flames or something.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's both.
For me, cool.
Yeah. So since I'm a new plane owner, a couple of years now, been running since 2001, and finally in 2021, I ordered a Tecnam P2010. Certified with a Lycoming IO 390 engine.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Cool. At the time, when I had my introduction flights and was learning a little bit, they recommended that, for a while you run it you lean it so that the EGTs are at 1350, and then eventually, you just basically lean it out to 1450 on the EGTs, and you'll be good to go. And by the way, I should also mention that the AFM recommends that you run it cruise economy. You lean it until it gets rough, and then only rich it to restore smooth running. And then for best power,
so for lean
P.
And then for best power. You first do your best cruise economy, and then you drop it, 100 degrees lower. But it was recommended just run it at 1350 for a while to break it in, and then 1450. So
who recommended that? That's not in the flight manual.
No, it's not. But it's one of the so-called experts in that particular engine model that was teaching me how to introducing me to that plane. Okay. So. Basically, I think he's a CFI. I don't know if he's an A&P, but that's what he recommended. And of course, at about 200 hours, I had my first little incident where for half a second, EGT number 2 just dropped off in flight, and then it just came back immediately. And then I had another incident where I lost cylinder 2, just stopped running, just dropped off slowly, and then came back. And in flight,
what did you feel when that was happening? Did you feel roughness?
I felt rough running. I lost no power in the RPMs, of course, because it's the variable prop and or fixed. I mean, it's got the blue knob, and it startled me for a second, and then it came back, and I saw in my replay video that the EGT number 2 had dropped off. So I bring it into the mechanic. He did a bunch of things. He checked the fuel spider. He checked some other things, and ultimately it turned out to be, SV, was it 388? I think. 388. And he did the wobble test. Yeah, right. Sticky valve. I had morning sickness after that, and then he did the wobble test, and obviously found the problem and we're good to go. But
Yeah,
the struggle that I'm having.
why the valve stuck? Because you
So
ran it at 1300 TIT. That's
Yep.
why.
Yeah.
Yep. And everything that I've learned from Savvy and all the readings that I've been doing, it clearly was that I wasn't burning off the crud off of the valves. Yep. And so now I'm paying more attention to the CHT. The problem I'm having is the airplane runs real cool. I can't seem to get the CHTs very high. It seems to. So I guess the best way to describe it is if I take it up to 8,500 or 9,500 and I run it according to the best cruise power, not Lena Peak, best cruise power, I might hit somewhere between 340 and 350 on the highest CHT, and then CHT number 2, and then CHT number 1 will be about 20 degrees, 25 degrees cooler, and then the other 2 will be somewhere in between. I rarely can get over 350 unless I'm in climb. And if I'm in climb, what I've started doing now is in climb, I lean it out so that I can get 3 of the CHTs over 350 to burn off crud. But once I level out and start cruise and start adjusting, it continues to run 350 and below on the 4 CHTs for the most part.
Hey, Scott,
yes.
Do you have access to a good borescope?
I don't, but maybe my mechanic does. Maybe via my mechanic, yes. I don't know if he has it or not. I'd have to ask him.
If he doesn't, go ahead and buy one for a little less than $300.
Okay.
I wouldn't stress about those CHTs. I would stick borescope in the cylinder and see what it looks like. See if there's excessive accumulation of lead deposits, or whether it looks pretty clean. If it looks pretty clean, keep doing what you're doing.
So, interesting point. Right about at my 24-month warranty period with Lycoming, my mechanic said, I'm noticing a very small leak of oil coming out of your cylinder halves. You might contact Lycoming and see if they'll repair that under warranty.
What do you mean?
So I did. I contacted
cylinder halves. Case halves,
yes. Thank you. Case halves.
Right.
Yeah. So then I contacted Lycoming, and Lycoming said, "Yeah, we'll repair that under warranty." So they, the mechanic took it out, shipped it to, they sent Lycoming sent a crate, shipped it to Lycoming. 5 months later, it came back. Mechanic put it back in. No more oil leak, and they did hone the cylinders. So basically, I kind of feel like I started off with a kind of a new engine, and I've got mineral oil in it now, and I'm about 40 hours into the mineral oil. And so at this point, what I'm doing is I'm leaning aggressively on the ground, and I'm trying to burn off. I'm trying to keep the CHTs kind of high in cruise. They never seem to get above 385, and then I do the best I can to keep them high in cruise. But I guess one of the points I found is if I go to Lena Peak, my CHT will drop under 300, and I don't know if that's healthy for it.
Yeah, don't worry about that so much. Lena Peak's going to be really good for keeping deposits low, but look in your cylinders on a regular basis with a borescope. Like I say, a good borescope is under $300.
Okay.
Anytime the top spark plug is off, you can just stick the borescope in there and take a look. We have a really good borescope inspection protocol that we've developed with a training video and everything on the Savvy website. If you're interested in learning about how to do a good borescope inspection and what we're looking for and all that stuff.
Because you can do the borescope. That's not maintenance.
It's free. You just go and look in the resources. Yeah. We don't charge for that.
Okay.
But if the cylinders are looking good under the borescope and you're not getting excessive deposits build up in around the valves, and especially if you take a borescope shot of the exhaust valve while it's wide open so you can actually see the valve stem and stuff. If you're not seeing a lot of deposit buildup, then you're doing fine. I wouldn't obsess about the cylinder head temperature. Let's look at what's actually going on in the cylinder. The best way to do that's with a borescope.
Scott, you provided your N number, and I looked up the data that you have posted to the Savvy platform to see if I could see that sticking valve. There were only 10 flights uploaded, and I didn't see anything really egregious. I've seen some bad sticking valves, but I saw a little bit of deviation in EGTs, but I didn't see the in-flight event that you mentioned. So maybe you didn't upload those flights, but it didn't look that bad. I'm not saying your mechanic was wrong in the wobble test, but
I'm convinced that he was, and I haven't uploaded. I just started uploading stuff to you recently because I discovered that I could.
That's the new engine.
Continue to do so.
That's the new engine. Yeah. Okay, got it. Okay. On that subject of the new engine, your 40 hours on mineral oil. I think your engine's broken probably broke in after 5 hours. So it's time to change the oil. Yeah, that stuff's dirty and it needs to be changed.
Yeah.
Okay. I did change it at 25. I did have him change it at 25, and then we put mineral oil in again. So he likes that. My mechanic says
do that.
So there's a difference. It's okay to run mineral oil, but you want to use ashless. You want to use what we would call detergent oil. So like W80 and W100 are mineral oil.
Most people, when they talk about mineral oil, they're talking about non-AD oil, like Aeroshell 100.
And that's what it is, W100, I think.
If it's W100,
that's
then
good.
You're fine.
Yeah, keep that. That's
if it's just regular that's what 100. It is. Okay,
good. I'm sorry.
It's fine to use a mineral oil. It's the break-in is typically done with a non-ashless dispersant. Well, that would be like 100, but W100 is ashless dispersant. They're both mineral oils.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But the break-in oil, I thought you said you were still on break-in oil.
Well, he said mineral oil. So we're just helping you distinguish between, quote, break-in oil and mineral oil.
Okay. I usually call break-in oil mineral oil.
Yeah, I think most people do that. They say mineral oil, they mean like straight mineral oil, meaning essentially no additives.
Well, if they say straight, I'm just one of those, it's like I don't assume or try not to. I think it is pretty funny, though. I hope Lycoming's not listening because I don't want them to change. If you ever talk to Lycoming about Lena Peak, like if you go to Oshkosh and say something about Lena Peak, they give you this, oh, no, don't do that. That's horrible.
Unclean.
But then in their instructions, as you said, you lean till it runs rough and enrich until it's smooth, which means you are Lena Peak.
Yeah.
But don't tell Lycoming that. If they don't know it, they're not going to change, and that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, appreciate you guys, especially for a new plane owner, since basically 2022 and trying to learn all this stuff and work with the mechanic. I appreciate all your knowledge and experience, and I listen to your show every week. So thanks a lot.
And
I think you're
Scott,
doing a good job.
I think I've actually seen your airplane fly into Gillespie because I've seen a Technum that we don't have. We have one based at Gillespie, which always turns heads, but I saw another one recently, and I think that might have been you in early February. So come and visit.
I just came down here for lunch.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay,
yeah,
I'll be back.
Nice.
Sounds like it must be a very well cooled installation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a modern plane. My gosh.
It's awesome.
It's very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Well, enjoy it.
Okay. So thank you.
Thanks for the call, Scott.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
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 Our next question is from Yuriy, who wants to treat his new Cirrus right. Is that it in the picture there, Yuriy?
That is correct, Colleen. Very
Beautiful.
nice meeting all of you guys. Big fan.
Awesome.
Well, and Ian's, I've been in his queue for about 6 months now, but well, it's okay. It's well worth it. I own a 2010 SR22 turbo normalized Cirrus. It has a Continental 550 normal compression and factory installed Tornado Alley. Wonderful engine. I absolutely love it. But my question is about operating the turbos. You guys have discussed ad nauseum that exhaust gas temperatures are relative. But I'm a fellow doctor with Mr. Bush.
Okay.
But operating turbos has a lot of lore, and I've been told that you reduce the power setting no more than 1 inch per minute, or cool off times. And I was hoping you guys can dispel some of these myths. I operate in cruise. It's operated 100% of the time lean off peak at approximately 28 inches of manifold pressure, and whatever RPM the Cirrus lever allows me to have, approximately 2440 to 2470. And I decided for myself to limit the turbine inlet temperatures to 1500 degrees. And I was wondering if that is a wise decision, if there's any benefit to running it hotter, if there's any benefit to reducing the manifold pressure further down. I appreciate you guys' input. I just want to make sure I get the same longevity of my engine and turbo as Mike does.
Well, first of all, keeping TITs at or below 1500 is excessively conservative. The red line on the turbos is 1650, and it's actually fine to exceed that as long as it's on a short-term basis. I have the same situation. I try to keep my TITs at or below 1600. And have had extremely good turbocharger life using that procedure. So I think if you're trying to keep them under 1500, you're being a little bit more conservative than necessary. Also, back in the day, I used to be part of this worrying about shock cooling, don't reduce manifold pressure more than 1 inch a minute crowd. And that was right up until I installed my first engine monitor and started actually seeing what the cool down rates of CHT actually were, and discovered that it's exceedingly difficult to shock cool an engine. I mean, you can do it, with a real slam dunk maneuver where you yank the throttle all the way back and you shove the nose down, but it's not easy to do. And so I don't do that stuff anymore. I'm happy to pull manifold pressure back 5 inches at a time, and nothing bad happens. Continental, to the best of my knowledge, doesn't publish any guidance about cool down rates. Lycoming somewhere or other had something that said don't cool down CHT more than 60 degrees a minute. So I have my engine monitor alarm set to alarm at a cool down rate of 30 degrees a minute, and it doesn't go off very often. And that's a very, very conservative alarm point. So at any rate, I don't think you have to baby that TN engine, which is, by the way, a fantastic installation. I personally think Cirrus took a step backward when they changed to the SR22T. But there were a lot of politics involved in that. It was more of a political decision than anything else.
Mike can't get past the fact that he doesn't have a blue knob on his Cirrus. That just drives him nuts.
That is problematic. That you can't you physically constrain not to be able to run that engine where you really would like to run it, because you can't independently control manifold pressure and RPM. But there is some STC to put a blue knob in, but I don't. It's very expensive, and I don't think very many people have installed it.
No. And so I've had my G1 for, 5 years, something like that. Don't remember now. And I'm usually a really nice guy, except to my airplane. I tend to be kind of mean. And I won't change the cylinders. It's eating all this oil, and I'm a firm disbeliever in shock cooling. So I won't say purposefully, but when I was growing up, Dad would arrive at the traffic pattern at cruise speed. Now, admittedly, we were usually in like a Skyhawk or a Tri-Pacer, so cruise speed and pattern speed, it wasn't a whole lot of difference.
Yeah.
But and as a mechanical engineer, So when we arrived at the pattern, he would pull the throttle back. I mean, you'd go from cruise power to near idle power really quick. And that's what I've always grown up with, and that's what I still do. I tend to fly a little fast on approaches and that sort of thing, but it doesn't bother me a bit to pull that throttle back quickly. But on a Cirrus, even on a TN, your CHTs are running what, 340, 350, something like that?
Yeah, in cruise, it's probably a little less. And the question wasn't about shock cooling necessarily the engine. People used to say you need to idle on the ground and cool the turbos for some reason so that oil doesn't cook and the bearings. And that was the cooling part of my question. But
I don't. The only time I will do that, will idle the engine before shutting it down, is if for some oddball reason I'm required to throttle up a lot just before shutdown. Normally, just taxiing in from the runway to wherever you're going to park is adequate time to let the turbocharger.
Unless you have
down.
a short taxi, I guess.
Yeah, but even your descent you've got the power way back, and especially on a TN, when you think about it, on a regular turbocharged engine, the turbocharger is required even at lower power settings just to keep it running, basically. But on your engine at lower power settings, it's basically a non-turboed engine. And so the turbos are not working very hard at all. And by the time you're taxiing in, those turbos are about as cooled off as they're going to get.
It's really a misnomer. It's not a question of cooling the turbos. That's not really what's important. It's that the turbocharger shaft spins pretty rapidly, and you'd really like it to slow down before you deprive it of lubrication by pulling by shutting down the engine. So it's really not a cool down. It's really a spin down. That's really the only purpose.
Yeah,
and I suspect, and if you're making a normal landing where the power is way back, for a considerable period of time before you even touch down, and then it's throttled back to idle at touchdown, and the turbocharger has lots of time to spin down as far as it's going to spin down.
Oh, I just know you had something else to ask. I see it in your eyes.
No. This answers the question. So I think I'm being fairly conservative. I tried pushing it harder, but truth is I don't see that much performance improvement when I run it. I tried pushing it, the temperatures up, and this is so well instrumented, but I'm going to be less worried about running it with slightly higher threshold for the turbine inlets. I really appreciate your guys' help and look forward to seeing you again.
Good. Well, Yuriy, I'm sure a lot of other people had the same question, so thanks for asking them.
Yeah. Good hot rod too. Enjoy that.
Yeah.
I love this airplane.
Really? That's awesome. Okay. Well, thanks for calling.
Have a great day.
You too. Yeah. Our next question is from Wade, who's got green on the panel, but green makes him go slow, which is wearing him out. So what's up, Wade? Good to have you on.
Did you guys see any of the email that I sent Ian?
The pictures.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
but Wade, you didn't send a picture of your 185. I wanted to see that.
He sent a picture of the most important part of his 185, which is
everybody with pictures of that 185, so I spared you, Pauline.
Oh, okay. Wow.
In any event, I'm proud of it. But the issue is, I've owned the plane for 5 years now. It's IO 550, and I like the motor. But my last annual, like I explained to Ian, he had some exhaust valves that were burnt. And so he replaced all my ground valves down. Actually, replaced some, and I had to do some work on the exhaust sleeves, and so there was more work, $15,000 worth of work on my annual that I was, and so what I'm trying to do is I want to know how to baby this engine. It's only got like 600 hours on an engine, and it was. I'm trying to figure out what am I doing wrong and why am I wearing it out prematurely.
You're not doing anything wrong.
Yeah, and you
Wearing
don't
it
want to
out.
baby the engine.
No.
Babying the engine. is the worst
Everything
thing
that
you can do.
I've read, gentlemen, is the 550, push the power up and leave it up there. And that's the way I ran it for like 3-4 years now.
Yeah.
And so, and I watched that video that Ian suggested that said leave the power up until you're approaching a landing. And so that's the way I've run it the last 4 years. But this wear and tear is what's got me concerned.
Well, this is not wear and tear.
Okay.
The burnt valves, you mean?
Yeah, the burnt valves. I mean, that's a function of leaded fuel for the most part.
Okay.
And there's
Right.
not a lot you can do about it because I have a 550 in my airplane and it has 2,300 hours. And I fly wide open throttle all the time. I'll pull the prop back as desired, and I run it just a little bit lean a peak because I like to go fast. So I'm anywhere, depending on my altitude, so the available percent power, I'm either at peak or 40 degrees lean a peak, something in there. I lean it to fuel flow, so I don't really pay much attention to degrees lean a peak.
Okay.
And it just does great.
So why is yours at 2,300 hours, Paul, and mine is 400 hours and burning valve? What's your opinion?
Well, I don't have a good answer for that one. I do know my engine was built in 2003 and installed on the airplane in 2004. Personally, I think that has something to do with it, but I don't know what. But so how are you leaning the engine?
Well, I used that JPI. I had a JPI in it for 3 years, and then summer of 2023, that winter, and then spring of 2023, I had the Garmin G3X with their suite, their lean assist function, and that's what I've been leaning it now the last year and a half.
Well, so Mike will give you a way better explanation, but using the lean find,
don't use the lean assist.
Don't use that.
Okay, that's one of those things that I thought I should add when I buy the Garmin suite. But
well, so the lean find, there's several problems with it. One is that the probes are a little slow.
Yeah,
but
I do lean slow. I do lean slowly as the little carrot shows up.
And that's the problem. We don't want you to lean slowly. We want you to lean very rapidly.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
because when you're transitioning from rich a peak to lean a peak, you're going through a period of basically light detonation during the transition, and you want to make that transition as quick as possible. If you watch any of us fly our airplanes, you'll see that we go from lean a peak to rich a peak in a matter of a couple seconds.
That's why they call it the big mixture pull, because you literally pull it back. You don't twist it back slowly.
So let me ask you another question. I'm looking at the picture of your G3X.
Yeah.
Who configured that green arc on that manifold pressure gauge?
Well, that was the other question I had.
That is way screwed up.
Yeah.
It's just a data entry when it's configured.
Well, I didn't know the right answer, and when I looked at it's an IO550D. When I looked that up, it says to full power on takeoff. It says on climb out, and so the manifold pressure doesn't give a value. It just goes in. So I don't
know.
Pulling power, going from takeoff power to cruise climb should be done with the propeller control, not with the throttle.
Well, I understand, but here's what the manual says for Teledyne Continental Motor. It says intake manifold pressure, maximum takeoff, full throttle, maximum continuous, full throttle. So that's the way I've been running the last 3 years, full throttle. But now when the Garmin suite came in, I didn't know what the right answer was, maybe I was doing it wrong the whole time. And
No.
Well, why don't you set that top of that green arc to 29 inches or something like it ought to be?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can do that. Well, I don't know if I can do it.
Do you know how to do that?
Yeah.
My tech advisor, the guy that installed it, is pretty capable. I'm sure.
Yeah. The way you do it, if you want to do it yourself, it's easy. If you hold down the menu key when you power it up,
right,
it goes into maintenance mode.
Right.
And then there's a big menu of things, and if you hit the engine and airframe button, it will navigate you into the right area where you can set all of the markings on all of those instruments to whatever you want them to be.
This is top secret information, by the way.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I knew how to get to that menu, but I never dove in further than that because I was afraid I was going to muck something up.
Just look around.
When you first go into maintenance mode, the screen fills up with a whole bunch of little square icons that you can tap on.
Right.
This is a G3X Touch, right?
Yes.
And probably in the lower right hand corner of the screen there'll be an icon that says engine and airframe.
Okay.
And if you click on that, you can navigate your way into where you set up the min and max for all of the colored arcs, and you can put a red radial line on there if you want to. You can do anything. It's very, very flexible. You can pretty much design those instruments however you want them.
Well, that was my initial inclination, but I didn't want to mess things up until talking to some experts.
Well, so
my avionics guy he's good at avionics, but he's not a good mechanic in my opinion.
So here's just to add a little bit to what Mike said. And you have a little different situation because you do not have the original engine in the aircraft.
Correct.
Mm.
So if you have the original engine, when you install that engine monitor, whatever kind it is, if it's set as primary, the FAA will say, and it'll be in the STC, that you have to set up those engine parameters, display parameters, in accordance with the original, like the POH, for instance. You have an STC'd engine. So if there are parameters that come along with that STC, in other words, if the STC says put a green arc from here to here on EGT or fuel flow or whatever, then you have to do that. The FAA requires it. And your installer hopefully read through all that and set it up in accordance with the STC. I don't know how the FAA looks on adding stuff. I can't imagine that they would be upset if you added a yellow arc to remind you, oh, you're getting close to maximum oil temperature or something like that.
But that manifold pressure gauge marking has to be an error.
It has to be.
Doesn't
makes
show
sense.
anything.
It's about 25 inches. It looks like the top of the green arc, and that doesn't make any sense that anybody would have a limitation of 25 inches of manifold pressure.
So I think the thing to do is go in your STC, find out if there's markings that are supposed to be there. And if there's not, I would get rid of the green arc. I don't know what value it has in the first place.
Well, they put it in there for some reason. I probably would keep the green arc just to keep everything nice and pretty.
It makes them happy. Let them leave it.
Okay.
Gotta have green.
Slide it instead of the top of it being at 25. If you can, slide it around where the top is at 30.
That's what I was thinking. I don't want 29. I want it 30 because I think on that one picture I sent you was actually a little over 29. I think.
Yeah.
I'm going by memory.
29.8.
Yeah, 29. So I think 30 would be the more likely.
Yeah. So, unlike a 210 owner that I saw type one time, he was taken off in Florida on a particularly cold morning when the density altitude was like minus 1,500 feet. And he was all excited. And he told the folks on the group he was on, it made so much power this morning, I had to pull the throttle back because it was over boosting. It was on a normally aspirated
engine.
I like his enthusiasm.
He got like 31 inches and he thought, oh no, this is too much. I have to pull the throttle back.
I'm going to blow the seals.
Right. Go back to my my problem then and the leaning technique. I don't want to do the 150 with. I've got sensors in every cylinder. What is my what's my new technique if I'm not using that Garmin lean assist?
The big pull.
Yes, do it quickly. Don't do it slowly. But
You pull it out until it starts to stumble, and then you twist it back in until it smooths out. That's a gross lean that would work just fine for you.
Yeah, that's really lean, but it works
And then
great.
do that a few times and watch what the fuel flow is. And after a while, you'll figure out just what fuel flow you want to lean to, and you don't need to do the
okay. So what the synopsis is, I'm doing it relatively fast. The engine runs rough, and I bring it back high. I should get that indicator, like Colleen said. It could be the little triangle, and then get it close to that, and then see what my fuel.
No.
What's the triangle?
Forget the triangle thing.
Okay.
No, all you're going to do is you'll lean it until you feel the airplane slow down. All the way till roughness if you want. But once you get it slowed down, or not slowed down, but you feel that slowing, and we're assuming you've done a gaming lean test and your injectors are balanced and that sort of thing, you can, at that point, just notice your fuel flow. And when you're at the same RPM and same manifold pressure, you can just go straight to that fuel flow every time. You don't have to go through the leaning process with EGTs.
It seemed to me that the JPI, I thought that was fairly accurate. It had the same 6-cylinder, and it always seemed cylinder number 5 was the one that was my limitation. But it seemed
limitation. I see.
It was the leanest, I think.
The peak blast.
The leanest one.
Yeah.
And but what was interesting is when the JPI, it seemed to have the fuel flow was less than the Garmin lean assist. It just seemed.
Well, the engine has not changed.
I understand.
So it's just a matter of procedure. And going from rich to lean and lean to rich, your EGTs may seem to peak at a different value. But
I'm just trying to add on what you guys are saying.
But we don't want to know what they peak at,
right?
Because we don't want to be spending time anywhere near peak EGT, unless you're at very reduced power.
Okay.
But we're talking, if we're talking about 75% power or something, you don't want to spend any time anywhere near peak EGT, and that's why you should never use the lean find feature, because that requires you to dawdle right
through that area.
The lean find feature depends on you finding peak first, and the act of finding peak puts you where you don't want to be.
Okay, I got the message. Don't use lean assist. Got that message.
Lean to fuel flow.
Yeah, use the fuel flow.
Do a big mixture pull.
You guys are like politicians. You're broken records. I get it. Do a big pull.
We were just waiting for the read back. That's all.
I think I gave it to you 3 times, but I'll do it more loudly.
Okay,
I heard him.
Any other thoughts on why this exhaust valve? I've burnt these exhaust valves. Any thoughts?
Exhaust valves burn because they're not making good contact with their seat, which is how they send the heat back to the block. Or no, I'm sorry, not to the block. It's back to the cylinder head. So the good contact is being interrupted by lead deposits. So we think you were maybe running too rich and generating a little too much lead, and your valve started to burn, and you weren't bore scoping regularly, so you didn't catch it before it got too far gone.
But I mean, even if you do everything right, you're going to burn valves on a Continental engine.
Sure.
That's why we want to bore scope them frequently and catch the burning early, so that we can just lap the valve in place and not have to pull the cylinder
and save the cylinder.
Yeah, my mechanic, I think he's very good, and I think he bore scoped him. He's been doing the annual for 4 years, but this is the one where he could see that green coloration on the exhaust valve.
Well, if you watch it closely, you catch it before it turns green. You see the asymmetric color patterns. So as the owner, what you want to do, because you're the manager of the maintenance, you want your mechanic to provide you with the photographs of the bore scoping so that you can have a look too, because there's nothing magic about looking at the exhaust valves. And if you go to the Savvy website, there's a whole bunch of information. I don't know how to get to it, but it's somewhere in the resources column.
Resources.
Yeah, it's in the resources section.
And it'll explain. Sorry. I'm from Tennessee.
You sound like Ricky Ricardo.
Well, he was from the South too.
You got a lot of explaining to do.
And so you can watch that, but instead of just relying on the fact that your mechanic does bore scopes, have the mechanic take photographs or get a bore scope yourself. And whenever the spark plugs are out, you go poke around in there and have a look. But so burn valves are preventable. If you're watching and paying attention, you can catch them before they have to come off and be addressed with the cylinder removed from the engine.
I knew I was going to get on this call and you guys were going to admonish me.
Oh.
Well, and there have been periods of time when Continental has had some issues with how they set up their valve geometry at the factory.
Sure.
Where there have been periods of years where Continental cylinders would just start burning valves at 500 hours, not because of anything that the pilot did, but because they didn't set up the valve geometry right at the factory.
That's that's my takeaway. It's not my fault.
That's good. Go with that, Wade. It's okay.
Continental's burn valves, like Lycoming stick valves. I think I'd rather have the burn than the stick, but I don't know.
I'm pleased with the engine. I'm pleased with the power and the production. And until this annual, I was blissfully ignorant, and so I'm just trying to get more longevity about this. But my mechanic, I think he's an excellent mechanic, and he's the one that found it, and he's the one that did bore scope it. And I think if he'd found a problem in previous annuals, he would have kept me in the loop. He wasn't going to hide it from me.
Good.
I've always found it sort of amazing that exhaust valves last as long as they do, when you consider what they're called upon to do, how hot they have to run, and that they don't really have any lubrication or anything. It's just it's kind of amazing that they survive.
Well, I've got it. So lean quickly, a big handful. I got that. Maintenance, push and hold, and then the airframe in the lower right. Change my green line. Any other advice on
and look at the bore scope pictures.
Yes.
And next time, send us a picture of your plane, because I like 185.
It's the world's most over improved Cessna 185. Looks like.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, it's on floats.
Oh, it's on floats.
Oh my God!
Wow.
There's the house in the background.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Are those straight floats or amphibs?
Amphibs. Yeah, actually,
he's got skylight.
The aero set, everything, as you guys know, in aviation, the aero set and the Garmin, everybody is trying to get my wallet. You guys are pretty cheap.
So sometimes cheap is the most expensive thing you can do. Just be careful.
Well, it does look like that airplane did get a pretty good hold of somebody's wallet.
That's
beautiful.
My wife is
oh my!
So I'm very fortunate. My wife is involved.
Very cool, Wade. We appreciate the call. Good questions.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the advice.
All right. Enjoy that airplane.
I sure will. Thank you.
Our next question is from Matt, and he has a great question that I think everybody should be asking themselves. He doesn't want to throw good money after bad. So tell us what you got, Matt. It's a good one.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me. So you advocate for hanging on to a high time engine that rather than a different one that you don't. But my question kind of pertains to, does that philosophy apply to an airplane as a whole? And so, here's a skinny. So Paul, you're going to get a chance to talk again. I got a 1977.
Because that's what everybody wants. Paul's going to talk again.
Well, I don't know
Please
about
stop.
So I have a 77 T210M, about 1,200 hours on the engine. It's a great plane. I got it where I like it. There's an engine monitor. But, as I'm finding parts are starting to get scarce, it's getting harder to find qualified mechanics that actually understand the 210. Like my engine, I'm a mid-time pilot, so I'm hoping to have a plane for the next 20 plus years. So I kind of feel like I'm at this spot where I want a great plane into the future, but I want one that doesn't turn into unobtainium, Mike. So my mission is, I'm looking for a sixth place. I have a sixth place turbocharged piston. So any alternative might be like an early 80s A36 Bonanza. Unlike the 210, they still, at least I think, make the Bonanza.
Not really.
It's really the other way around. I think Cessna parts are more available than Beech parts, don't you think?
And cheaper. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the crux of the question: is do I hang on to the 210 that I got, or do I gamble on a new to me antique that was or may more recently
Sounds like the
production?
Sounds like the price is right.
Yeah. I
Door
think
number
you've already
2,
answered your question.
No, unless you want to buy a Piper Mirage or something like that.
Yeah, which is
Because
expensive.
Cirrus doesn't make a sixth place.
Mm-hmm.
But the Bonanza is every bit as much of an antique as the 210.
Absolutely. So I've got a couple of, if you see behind me, you can see the wingtip of we've got several here at the shop. It's a great plane. And the truth is, and I don't deal with Beechcraft, so I can't speak to that a whole lot, but Cessna or Textron is doing a really good job of providing parts. So I don't know, how long have you owned your 210?
Probably about 5-6 years.
Okay, so you went through the spar carry through AD. The fact that Textron decided to build a replacement spar for the airplane, I was actually a little bit surprised, because then that resets the insurance, the liability clock on a major part of the airplane for them. And they produced this part for roughly $20,000, which is amazing as well. It took them a while, but they did it on an airplane that they haven't built since 1986. So the fact that they were willing to do that when they could have just as easily said, we're done, because you can't buy a part for your Chevrolet car that's older than 10 years from Chevrolet. You can buy it from everybody else, but not from Chevrolet.
Yeah,
so if
that really was pretty astonishing. I remember, Paul, when I was in Jackson and you were just unwrapping the first new 210 spar that you'd seen. What an amazing piece of metal that is! Oh,
it was beautiful. Yeah, it was. But it
is really counterintuitive that Textron would actually decide to do that.
Yeah, and they're doing it for the
lawyers must have been screaming and hollering the whole way.
Yeah, and they're building one for the Cardinal. I haven't been keeping up with it, but it's in progress now. I don't know. The market for that is much smaller. Yeah,
right.
So compared to a Bonanza, which is, I don't know. I guess you could say that the A36 is still in production. I don't know if they're making 4 a year or something like that.
It's not meaningfully in production.
Yeah, it's not meaningful. If I had a 210 and if that satisfied the mission that you have and you're familiar with it, man, to me, that is the option. And I don't know. So please don't let anybody send emails, but in all the times that you see some sort of direct comparison between a 210 and a Bonanza, I'll just say it's a toss up. We'll let it go at that, and then everybody can argue about it. But I'm not going to get involved in that again. But I can tell you, you'll have a hard time finding a machine that'll carry that much, that far, that fast.
And I think you wouldn't be happy in a low wing airplane after you've been flying a high wing airplane for a while. It'll be really weird.
Yeah, having two doors.
So shame on you for even thinking about that.
Yeah.
And Paul, have you ever worked on an A36TC?
An A36TC. I've worked on. I'm trying to remember. Have I worked on an A36? I can't remember. I don't think so.
Why? Why do you ask?
Well, because maintenance access is tough enough on a T210, but on an A36TC, holy mackerel!
Yeah. Well, so just Bonanzas in general. So we have maintained a few. I had the very short version of the story is the pilot decided to fly through a tree and was able to get through the other side.
Did the tree make it?
Parts of it. Okay. And
I've seen that picture.
Yeah, right. So we're replacing the nose bowl on this Bonanza. Wow. It was I think it was a V35, but same nose bowl, no big deal.
Yeah.
And we ordered one from Beechcraft because this is 25 years ago. And we get this blank stamped out part. It was about 2 inches oversized on the aft edges. I'd never installed one before, and it's all riveted, So I called up Beechcraft, and you can still call those people, and the ones that are still there. And I said, how do I fit this thing? And he didn't use this term, but he said you just kind of use the TLAR system. So I did. I got it all set up, and we trimmed and fit and trimmed and fit. But what I found out was the stamp that pressed those out would last for X number of usages. Maybe it was 100. They could stamp out 100 nose bowls, and then they had to make a new one. Well, every time they made a new one, it was a different shape. It was completely different. And the guy that I spoke to worked on the assembly line and actually used to fit these things. And it was pretty amazing what he told me. He said, none of them fit good.
He said, rots a ruck.
Rots a ruck, yeah. So, but in order to get the two front cylinders off of a Bonanza engine, you basically have to take the two middle cylinders off because this nose bowl, unlike a 210, is riveted in place. So on a 210, that's just, they're screws. You take the nose bowl off, it's no big deal.
You can take everything off.
Yeah. So you have a 210, that's an awesome plane. Yeah. You really want to stick with the 210.
Well, thank you. That was the answer I was hoping to hear.
Yeah.
Good. Oh, good. I would agree.
Yeah.
I like the bird in the hand. Yeah.
The Bonanza has an engine compartment that's basically all structural. And it was designed for an E-series engine or a 470.
Yeah.
And then when they started putting 520s and 550s, it was a pretty tight fit. But boy, when you start putting turbocharging on there.
Oh, yeah. Where do you put it all?
Talk about 20 pounds of stuff in a 10-pound sack,
Yeah, I tried, if I've worked on one of those, it was probably a very painful event. And I probably hid that away somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's emotionally scarred.
Emotionally scarred.
Yeah, the term is repressed.
Repressed. There we go.
Well, that's great. Now you give me a reason to come to your fancy CPA class.
Oh, the other really good thing about T210s?
What's that?
There are enough of them that were made and enough of them that crashed that there's a pretty good supply of salvage yard parts for those things.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Just don't land it with the gear up. That's a bad event. It's not painful. Well, your downtime is going to be forever. And there are some parts that you can't find, so they have to be fabricated. It's a horrible, horrible event.
Is that something about the 210, Paul? Because we often say that gear up landings create minimal damage. Really, they scrape off antennas and.
Well, it's not. It depends on how you do it. So, since you mentioned the class, if you come to class, we spend time talking about, gear up, gear down, 1 gear down, 2 gear down, grass, pavement. So I'll just cut to the very end of the story.
Well, one gear down is painful. That doesn't sound like a good plan at all.
Well, whatever gear you can get down, land with that and land on pavement.
Yeah.
Don't land in the grass.
But does it cause structural issues with the 210 in particular?
No,
Or
it's
okay.
just so if you land with all gear up, which is common, that's when,
Yeah.
oh, gee, I forgot to put the gear down. And don't do anything special. It's not an emergency. Nobody gets hurt. They don't get hurt during the accident. The hurt comes later when you're having to pay for things and wait for the airplane to get fixed, which could be a year.
Sometimes the hurt happens when they remove the airplane from the runway.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you want to not have to worry about downtime, you land at some place like Memphis or Nashville where they'll come out with a chain and lasso the tail and drag it off.
Guaranteed total loss.
Yeah, it's a total loss. And immediately you have cash in hand to go buy a replacement. But gear up landings are one of those ones where, you get to choose where it happens. I actually had that phone call once from an airplane. He's calling me. Can't get the gear down. What do I do? And I said, well, pick a place that can fix it. So that's
right. No.
And land on the crosswind runway.
And land on the or the taxiway or something. Don't land on the main runway. No, when you land on the belly, it scrapes off a skin. And depending on the speed at which you land and the texture of the runway, it can scrape all the way through and get bulkheads or stringers below.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem is. Okay. But if you land in the grass, the paint will be beautifully polished, but it'll look like somebody went around with a sledgehammer and just beat the pulp out of it.
Yeah.
And you'll have way, way worse damage than if you land on pavement. So, but anyway, all that to say, 210 is a great airplane. Just don't land with the gear up.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
or if you
made my year.
All right.
You land in Jackson, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come to Jackson and go to class.
Or Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Not a bad place.
That'd be okay. Yeah.
I heard they're good with the wheels out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're good with the wheels.
You can always find a tire somewhere nearby.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Enjoy that 210.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
Bye-bye. Well, it looks like we're out of time. Where did that hour go? We all hear a lot of feedback from listeners, and we want you to know we really appreciate that. None of us were podcast listeners when we started this caper, but we've learned to appreciate this new way of spending time with you all, whether you're in your hangar, working on your plane, or driving to work. Thank you so much for your support. Remember, we couldn't have much to talk without your questions. Keep them coming. Email us at podcasts@aopa.org.
See you next time.
So long, everybody.